Ezra 8 is another one of those Bible chapters which doesn't start off in a very inspiring way. It's a long list of names, but it roots its reality in the history of the moment, and gives us a flavour of how many people are on the journey, and then we read more about this remarkable journey of Ezra and his compatriots from Babylon to Jerusalem, which took them a good 3 months. So let's read and see what we can learn. These are the family heads and those registered with them who came up with me from Babylon during the reign of King Artaxerxes. Of the descendants of Phinehas, Gershom. Of the descendants of Ithamar, Daniel. Of the descendants of David, Hattush. Of the descendants of Shechaniah. Of the descendants of Parosh, Zechariah. And with him were registered 150 men. Of the descendants of Pahath Moab, Elionai, son of Zariah, and with him 200 men. Of the descendants of Zatu, Shechaniah, son of Jehaziel, and with him 300 men. Of the descendants of Adin, Ebed, son of Jonathan, and with him 50 men. Of the descendants of Elam, Jeshiah, son of Athaliah, and with him 70 men. Of the descendants of Shephatiah, Zebediah, son of Michael, and with him 80 men. Of the descendants of Joab, Obadiah, son of Jehiel, and with him 218 men. Of the descendants of Bani, Shelomith, son of Josephiah, and with him 160 men. Of the descendants of Bebai, Zechariah, son of Bebai, and with him 28 men. Of the descendants of Azgad, Johanan, son of Hakatan, and with him 110 men. Of the descendants of Adonikam, the last ones, whose names were Eliphalet, Jewel, and Shemaiah, and with them 60 men. Of the descendants of Bigvai, Uthai, and Zaccur, and with them 70 men. I assembled them at the canal that flows towards Ahava, and we camped there 3 days. So this is, you get a sense, all these men, then they've got their families, wives, children with them. This is going to be quite a big company making this journey and getting ready to move. Just going out on a family walk sometimes with a couple of kids can be pretty hard work getting everybody out the door, but here's a massive company. So what other preparations is he having to make? When I checked among the people and the priests, I found no Levites there. So I summoned Eleazar, Ariel, Shemaiah, Elnathan, Jarib, Elnathan, Nathan, Zechariah, and Meshullam, who were leaders, and Joiarib and Elnathan, who were men of learning. And I ordered them to go to Iddo, the leader in Casaphia. I told them what to say to Iddo and his fellow Levites, the temple servants in Casaphia, so that they might bring attendance to us for the house of our God. Because the gracious hand of our God was on us, they brought us Sherebiah, a capable man, from the descendants of Mali, son of Levi, the son of Israel, and Sherebiah's sons and brothers, 18 in all, and Hashabiah, together with Jeshiah, from the descendants of Merari, and his brothers and nephews, 20 men in all. They also brought 220 of the temple servants, a body that David and the officials had established to assist the Levites. All were registered by name. So he had this company ready to move back to Jerusalem, ready to get the temple working again. But he recognises he needs people who serve in the temple, and so he sends off a message to get more of these. People haven't left Babylon yet, people still in exile, people who haven't gone with the previous waves of returnees, and so Ezra is gathering them all together. There by the Ahava Canal I proclaimed a fast, so that we might humble ourselves before our God and ask him for a safe journey for us and our children with all our possessions. This is a big caravan in the old-fashioned sense of the word, a group of people on a journey, a long journey, and they're going to need safety, and so they mark the beginning of the journey with this time of fasting and prayer, looking to God for them. There's all this evidence already that God's hand has been on them in different ways, the letter from the king, the provision of these temple servants, but they aren't taking that for granted, and they want to pause and to pray. I was ashamed to ask the king for soldiers and horsemen to protect us from enemies on the road, because we had told the king the gracious hand of our God is on everyone who looks to him, but his great anger is against all who forsake him. So we fasted and petitioned our God about this, and he answered our prayer. Then I set apart 12 of the leading priests, namely Sherebiah, Hashabiah, and 10 of their brothers, and I weighed out to them the offering of silver and gold and the articles that the king, his advisers, his officials, and all Israel present there had donated for the house of God. I weighed out to them 650 talents of silver articles weighing 100 talents, 100 talents of gold, 20 bowls of gold valued at 1,000 darics, and 2 fine articles of polished bronze as precious as gold. I said to them, you as well as these articles are consecrated to the Lord. The silver and gold are a freewill offering to the Lord, the God of your ancestors. Guard them carefully until you weigh them out in the chambers of the house of the Lord in Jerusalem, before the leading priests and the Levites and the family heads of Israel. Then the priests and Levites receive the silver and gold and sacred articles that have been weighed out to be taken to the house of our God in Jerusalem. So, as you think about that, not only is it the men with their wives and children making this big journey, dangerous journey, they've got all this wealth with them as well, ready for use in the temple. And despite that, Ezra doesn't ask the king for an escort, a guard, to guarantee their safety, because they've told the king that God will protect them. And so they spend time praying for God's protection on the journey, not taking that for granted. They also practically divvy out the responsibilities to make sure that things are taken safely on the journey, that nothing's accidentally left behind or lost along the way. Different people are ascribed responsibility to make sure it happens. So this is not a prayer and a wing. This is prayer and planning, but recognising that it's God that they're trusting in all of this. On the 12th day of the first month, we set out from the Hava Canal to go to Jerusalem. The hand of our God was on us, and he protected us from enemies and bandits along the way. So we arrived in Jerusalem, where we rested 3 days. On the 4th day, in the house of our God, we weighed out the silver and gold and the sacred articles into the hands of Meremoth, son of Uriah the priest. Eleazar, son of Phinehas, was with him, and so were the Levites, Jozabad, son of Jeshua, and Noadiah, son of Binnui. Everything was accounted for by number and weight, and the entire weight was recorded at that time. Then the exiles who had returned from captivity sacrificed burnt offerings to the God of Israel, 12 bulls for all Israel, 96 rams, 77 male lambs, and as a sin offering, 12 male goats. All this was a burnt offering to the Lord. They also delivered the king's orders to the royal satraps and to the governors of Trans-Euphrates, who then gave assistance to the people and to the house of God. So the preparations were described, the praying, and then this 3 months journey is skipped over in a verse, and they arrive safely and everything's delivered, and there's great rejoicing. Why is it God's word is taking time not to give us the details of the journey and all the dangers and all the stories along the way? There must have been stories along the way, because it wants us to look at the general principle, and this principle of trusting God, and our witness then as to the way we live our lives, as to putting our trust in him and our dependence on him in prayer. Then it's interesting, isn't it, that Ezra talks about being ashamed to ask the king for an escort. We believe in a good God. Why do we need the king's support? It's not an encouragement to recklessness, but it is an encouragement to a faith-filled life that is evidently trusting God, and that's perhaps excuse me, a challenge for us today. How can we practically live out a life of faith? There's a demonstration to others, not that we're jumping off buildings or anything stupid, but neither are we panicking or worrying about covering every eventuality, but committing ourselves to God. And are we consciously aware of that?